On October 26th, Legendary announced that Dune Part 2 is happening. Some of you may be thinking, didn't WarnerMedia's Ann Sarnoff announce that last week, so what's the big deal? Well, actually, no, she did not. In this editorial, I will explain why Part 2 is only a reality now, after Legendary announced it. How we all should be grateful for that in light of how badly WarnerMedia botched the release, and finally, which character Denis Villeneuve really needs to include in it. Last week, on October 21st, Deadline Hollywood released a lengthy interview with WarnerMedia head honcho Ann Sarnoff, in which she said, "Will we have a sequel to Dune? If you watched the movie to see how it ends, I think you pretty much know the answer to that." Many took that to mean that a sequel most definitely was happening, which it, at the time, wasn't. That interview was released on the eve of the movie's premiere, and it's standard Hollywood MO to signal confidence and let audiences know that we're doing this, so get in on the action and see it now so you don't miss out. But it's just a marketing trick. Sure, it reveals an intention, but it doesn't guarantee any kind of follow-through. Case in point, J.J. Abrams' Star Trek IV was officially announced on the eve of Star Trek Beyond's premiere, and that movie still hasn't shown up 5 years later, and chances are it probably never will. So, from last week to this week, what changed? Well, at some point, money obviously changed hands between distributor WarnerMedia and production company Legendary Pictures. To compensate them for theatrical gross left on the table, and a lot of theatrical gross was left on the table in this case. The movie actually opened in limited markets an incredible 6 weeks ago. That's when I saw it, that's when reviews came and hype was at its peak. And yet, no one in the US or UK or other major markets around the world could see it for another 6 weeks, when hype had waned significantly. And then it opened day and date on HBO Max. Now that of course is awesome for HBO Max owners WarnerMedia and AT&T, but not so much for production company Legendary, whose proceeds by default are tied to the box office gross. So money changed hands to compensate for that whole HBO Max thing, but evidently, Legendary must have been sufficiently pleased with the 40 million domestic opening, which is not bad when you consider how badly they botched the release, that they decided to proceed with Part 2, and hopefully Part 3 after that. Do note, however, that in today's Deadline Hollywood article, it is stressed that when it opens in October of 2023, so 2 years from now, Part 2 will receive an exclusive theatrical release. This only goes to show how big a sticking point this was with Legendary. So, Part 2 is happening, which means Denis Villeneuve will get to do what David Lynch already did, and finish the story of the first book. But in so doing, Villeneuve should seize the opportunity to do something that Lynch never did. Denis Villeneuve's Dune Part 2 must obviously include the major characters that weren't in Part 1, like Feyd-Rautha, Emperor Shaddam IV of the House Corrino, and his daughter Irulan. All of these are obvious, they must be in the movie. But there is another, one that hasn't been brought to life on the big screen thus far, and he is a fan favorite at that. That would be Count Fenring. Fenring is the longtime friend and advisor to Emperor Shaddam, and a formidable fighter. He serves as Shaddam's agent, emissary, or assassin as necessary. Fenring appears to stutter big time, but in reality, he uses a humming code to communicate with his Bene Gesserit wife. Given the sound design of Dune Part 1, that alone is reason enough to put him in Part 2. But there's more. Irulan described him as one of the deadliest fighters in the Imperium, and as a dapper and ugly little man. Even Baron Vladimir Harkonnen fears and respects him, calling him a killer with the manners of a rabbit, the most dangerous kind. In short, to spice up the character roster, Denis Villeneuve needs to add Count Fenring to Part 2. Now, to celebrate that we will be getting a Part 2 at all, how about you go get yourself one of these awesome Dune t-shirts exclusively from our store. Link is in the description. With that, let me know if you are excited for Part 2 and if you want to see Count Fenring in it in the comments.